Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Double Game Week 31 pod of the FPL Wire, powered by DreamSetGo. I'm your host, Zoph, and I'm joined by my co host, Late Riser. How are you doing, buddy?
Good, good. Enjoying the break. Like you've been watching a ton of content. Thanks to you put me onto the Week Crash show, and super pumped. Enjoying both of them. How's your break been?
I've been switched off from FPL so long that I'm finding it difficult to switch back on. I even uninstalled all the social media stuff. I'd uninstalled Twitter, Instagram. I'd only post my Wordle scores in the morning using the desktop app. Played so much Gran Turismo, enjoying the F1 a lot. So what I've been doing every Sunday. I've been getting 2 hours in before the race with the wheels. So it's really fun. You know all the turns, the braking points, etc., on the track. So it's been a great
Yeah.
break.
Yeah, I think it's the longest this season. You and me haven't spoken FPL. We only really started talking FPL, I think, yesterday. It's been otherwise just been off the record, off the track completely. But time to dive right back in because the business end of the season is here. Let's go on with
Yep.
the
We have
sport
to give a
sponsors.
mention to our friend Bakar, aka Mr. Pervez Musharraf, whose word cannot be relied upon. He was planning to be with us, but he instead decided to devote his efforts to determining the prices of aloo tomato, which is translates into potatoes and tomatoes, in order to depose Imran Khan. So we hope to have Bakar with us soon again.
Also, a very happy birthday to him in advance, which is the reason why he's not with us today.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, he texted us last night. So we had scheduled the pod for today evening, and everything was on track. And he was like, "Yeah, let's do 7 o'clock in the evening today," and then just drops a text in the middle of the night. Imagine how that happened in the middle of the night, saying that, "You know what, boys, my family is taking a trip because it's my birthday for the next 3 or 4 days." So he's on a birthday vacation. Happy birthday to you, Bakar, and let us know details because we know it's not family.
Hmm. Right. Let's get started with our sponsor video. DreamSetGo is India's first sports travel and experiences platform, offering a range of premium end-to-end authentic experiences across football, cricket, tennis, F1, rugby and golf among others. From matchday hospitality to VIP stadium tours, from private meet and greets with athletes and legends to exclusive access to their training sessions, DreamSetGo curates the most fulfilling sports travel packages for fans like you.
And all the stats that you see on our podcast are from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. If you aren't a member already, it's really worth getting in, especially because I'm really finding these attacking returns and FPL point stats quite useful in terms of determining how the players are doing. So we have a little link in the description below. If you click on our link and become members, it's useful for us as well. So yeah, that's that. Let's dive right into it with Kash.
Yep.
Now, the starting point that I wanted to make is just for a couple of minutes look back at how 26 to 30 went. And a lot of people are talking about how many double game weeks we had, etc., and how many players you own, and if you had 25 players playing in that game because of the number of doubles and everything. And all of that, in my opinion, is just a pile of gas. Because if you look at this table here, it's filtered by FPL points scored between game week 26 to 30. Now you see that, okay, the Spurs players are occupying the top 4 or 5 slots because they played the majority of the games because they had the most amount of number of games. So did Wolves in that period, and so did Leeds United to an extent. But Spurs are up there, and Liverpool have played 2 or 3 games lesser compared to everybody else out there as well. And the names that you see on this list is basically Spurs players, Liverpool players, Arsenal players, Coutinho, and Kai Havertz. And this is essentially coming down to that Game Week 28 podcast we did, where you and me had that chat where I was, trying to figure out my wild card, and you said, "Pranal, just don't get tunneled in, looking only at the doublers, focus on the good players and good teams." And I think this image just tells us that that is essentially the case.
Right. For audio listeners, the top five guys in terms of points here are Kane, Cash, Son, Kulusevski, and Doherty. And then you have the Liverpool guys, Salah, Mane, Saka, etc. So these are all guys from the top end of the table except Cash.
Exactly, exactly. And we just had a little bit of a. I know I went into Ragaboli's DMs and asked him. Just wanted to see how the people who adopted different strategies did in this period as well. So if we can move to the next slide.
This one?
This basically shows us how the sample size here is basically the top 20k, and about 25% of the top 20k wildcarded in game week of the current top 20k wildcarded in game week 26. About 20%, 38% of them wildcarded in game week 28, and then we have a 36% sector which is either people who didn't wildcard or wildcarded in probably game week 29 as a 36%. Now what we saw is that for the chip that you spent less, on an average, an FPL player gained about 15 odd points. The people who wildcarded in Game Week 26 have scored 453 points between Game Week 26 and 30, and that is despite losing 25 points to 70% of the other section, which probably triple captain Salah. So they did make up those points to the opposition and then gain some, probably because I think the people that wildcarded in Game Week 26 also use the bench boost chip in Game Week 28. Because I wanted to look at this because I only have one free hit left from Game Week 31 to 38, and I wanted to know what I'm defending against my competition. And on an average, if you look at 1.69 chips left for 38% of the crowd that wildcarded in 28, and 2.3 chips left on average for the 38 other percent that did not wildcard. On an average, 70% of the competition in the top 20k has 2 chips left. And my presumption is they probably have either one of wildcard or BB left and a free hit chip left. So that's what you're essentially fighting against. And just wanted to let you guys know how the chips have fallen, etc. That's all. So if you're one chip behind, on an average, you're defending close to 15 points is my presumption. Any
15 to
comments?
20. 15 to 20. No, I
15
think
to-
you summarized it fairly well.
Yep.
But
That leaves us to Lego Mane's chart.
yep.
Now, this is before we dive into strategy and what we're planning to do, just briefly taking you all through how the fixtures have fallen in game week 31, 33, and how the doubles might look game week 34 onwards. Big credit to @Lego Mane who made this chart, and he said it in caps lock in his tweet that this is just a prediction of fixtures game week 34 onwards. It is not exactly what's going to happen. Things change, and it's based on a lot of moving parts. But what we're looking at essentially is that Everton and Burnley have a double in game week 31 and 33. The double for Burnley involves Man City and Everton at home. It's worth noting that both these teams, Everton and Burnley, have the most number of games left in the league. They have 11 games left in the league, and both these teams will have 3 double game weeks between game week 31 to 38. So when you're looking at quantity, these two teams have a lot of quantity of fixtures left, along with Leicester, who also have 11 games left this season and 3 double game weeks left to be played this season. In game week 33, we have doubles for United, good-looking doubles or decent-looking doubles for Leicester, who play Newcastle and Everton away. A decent-looking double for Newcastle, who play Leicester and Palace at home. Now, I think this double for Newcastle is good from an attacking standpoint, not necessarily from a defensive standpoint, because both Leicester and Palace know how to score goals. And then you have some average-looking doubles for Southampton, who play Arsenal and Burnley. Burnley, who play West Ham and Southampton. And Leicester, who play Newcastle and Everton. Now, just looking at this game week 31 to 33 period, I think the teams for doubles that you probably target include Burnley, because Burnley have a double in 31 and 33. I have a decent fixture in 32, that's Norwich away. And then you have Leicester and Newcastle, who have decent doubles in game week 33. Any other teams that jump out?
Nope. I think Burnley particularly I like a lot more than Everton because I think they're more of a solid team. They're much more of a developed team, and I think they'll be very much targeting this period. You look at fixtures against Everton, Norwich, and Southampton. These are games that Dai should have earmarked, that these games are crucial for our survival, and generally, these are the fixtures that usually rise to the occasion. And I like the fact that out of that, Everton is at home, Southampton is at home, and Norwich actually being at Carrow Road, I think sort of plays into their hands, because that game we could expect it to be a more open game.
Correct. Cool. Now, before we dive deeper into 31 to 33, we'll now just look at the predicted fixture schedule game week 34 onwards. We can move back to Lego Mane's chart. So now, what's going to happen post game week 34? We're essentially expecting post game week 34 a couple of doubles for Aston Villa. We're expecting one double for Crystal Palace, and majority of the teams are going to double in game week 36. Now, these include 5 big teams. It includes Liverpool, who have a decent looking double in game week 36. City, who have a decent looking double in 36. City could also have a double in 37. So they either are going to double in 36 or 37. That's based on a few things that are going to happen later. Spurs have a double in 36. Now, Spurs double is very interesting because a Spurs double looks like Liverpool away and Arsenal at home, which is going to be important when we're going to be discussing free hit later. Because a lot of people are heavy on free Spurs assets at the moment. And out of the big teams, Spurs have the weakest looking double game week in game week 36, but have a great run of fixtures before 36 and after 36 as well. So, if you want to hold your Spurs assets and free hit out Spurs assets in 36, there's an opportunity there. Chelsea have a double in 36, which could be pretty enticing. And so City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Spurs. These are the 5 big teams. And outside of that, teams that could have a double in 36 include Leicester. Leicester now are predicted to have a double in 30. They have a double in 33. They could have a double in 36 and a double in 37 as well. Now, based on their European fortunes, now if you're looking at wildcarding in game week 34, Leicester are playing PSV in Europe,
PSV
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So if they lose to PSV, then you're very comfortably loading up on Leicester assets in game week 34 when you're wildcarding. So that's a factor that we're going to address later. Palace have a very decent looking double against Watford at home and Everton away. So I think Palace is a team you target very strongly on your wildcard if you're wildcarding in 34. And outside of that, Villa have a double. And those are most of the teams that we've spoken about. Now this is essentially how the chips have fallen and what it might look like game week 34 onwards. Now, in my opinion, the main conversation that we need to have is for the wildcarders. And it's a good time to bring you into the conversations up because you have a wildcard in hand. Have you considered playing the wildcard in game week 31? Or are you planning to do it later? What's the thinking?
So the thing is, right, I think the wildcard in 31 makes sense for people who have a lot of Wolves, Leeds, and Villa players from earlier on. If you went heavy on them on 30, game week 30. In my team, personally, I just have Jimenez, Rafinha, and Dean, who I plan to phase out over the next 3 weeks with like individual transfers. So I don't think personally I need to wildcard. I think there's more value for me in avoiding the game week 32 matchup against City and Liverpool, and also hoping that some of these guys go out of Europe. I have a bit more clarity after 33, see how the FA Cup fixtures land in 33. And then I'm hoping that whole week between 33 and 34, we get the schedule for the entire run in. So that gives you a lot more clarity because a lot of things are still up in the air in terms of the doubles, in terms of, let's say, how far West Ham will progress in Europe, and accordingly, like how these guys are going to rotate and prioritize those competitions. So I think that sort of clarity might be more useful. But if you have loads of Wolves defenders, the likes of Saiz, Cody, and all that stuff, loads of Villa players like in defense, I think it's worth using the wildcard now.
Yeah, essentially, I think if you're using your wildcard, whether it's in 31 or 34, you're going to load up on Liverpool, City, Spurs, and Arsenal. That's going to be the crux
Correct.
of your wildcard. I think if you go in 34, you maybe go a little heavier on Villa, Chelsea, and Palace, for example. I think those are the 3 teams that will emerge as differentials because people are going to start loading up on Man City assets right now as well. So I think that's the big differential. And I think the key factor for you is you're okay to avoid that game week 32 fixture where the 2 teams are playing against each other. I've also noted down a couple of cons of wildcarding in 31. I think if you're wildcarding in 31, you don't get to punt on teams that are doubling in 33. You can essentially save that free hit chip in 33 and pick up players like Ronaldo or Bruno, for example, who have a decent looking double in 33, or Newcastle players, because Newcastle don't have good fixtures post 34, and United are not teams that you want to target because they don't have a double game week fixture in 36 post 34. So I think you can buy these players for 1 or 2 weeks and then phase them out on your wildcard. So I think that's one of the cons. Why 34? What are you gaining out of wildcarding in game week 34?
Because those Man City fixtures primarily, I look at that, right? Man City play Watford, Leeds, Newcastle. I like that also. Now, possibly now, another thing, we have a few injuries now. We're expecting Trent to possibly miss. He's definitely missing game week 31 from what I hear.
Correct.
You can even sell him, let's say, for game week 32 for a doubler and all that stuff. So there are a lot of moves you can make which are good short term. You can sell Ramsdale for the likes of Pope, etc., and buy these guys back in 34. So there's a lot more like hokey cokies you can do, I think, to capitalize on the short term than using your wildcard now. Because if you wildcard now, then you have to build a structure in which you have to bring Trent back in later. You probably leave Robbo and there's a transfer. You probably pencil it later or decide to go without Trent.
That's true, actually. That trend factor is a huge consideration. You can just easily get him in 34, etc. Also, one thing that is a big advantage of wildcarding in 34 is actually knowing that we are 3 more games into the season. So you're actually knowing how the title race is shaping up. Have Are City and Liverpool still in the European competitions? How the race for fourth is shaping up as well. And accordingly, you can jump on teams as well. Also, I think Chelsea is an important factor because Chelsea's Champions League tie is a tough looking tie against Real Madrid. Now, in my opinion, currently, Chelsea are a little bit of a no go in the league, despite having good fixtures, because you think they prioritize cup competitions. You know Tuchel better.
I don't think so, but we have a deep enough squad to play significantly different players in both.
Correct. So if you think players like Rudiger is safe, but would you say Reece James is safe? In my opinion, Reece James should be prioritized for that Madrid tie, and that's going to happen pre 32 and pre 33, right? The
Yes,
Champions League games.
correct. Precisely. Please, now see, it is different. Now, let's say a Brentford at home is not the sort of the game you need Aspilicueta in. You need somebody who can possibly open them up. But away to Madrid, I would rather have Aspi in that position, just purely because that's more of a defensive role he has to play. That sort of experience might help you bring. It all depends on the game state, what it things are like in the second leg. If we need to score, if we need to defend, that's how it's going to be tailored.
So if you were wildcarding in 31, let's say this week, are there any Chelsea assets that you can
I would still get.
confidently
I
recommend?
mean, about Reece James, I'm never going to say no. You'd still buy Reece James because ultimately you'd
Correct.
want him for the later games when they have the double, etc., etc. And as we have seen, he can go big even a single fixture. So you definitely want to get him in. But something I want to talk about and something a lot of people have been interested in is the possibility of a game week 33 bench boost for wildcarders to enable you to have a stronger team for the run in. And this is something you were mentioning earlier. If you want to get in the likes of KDB alongside Salah and maybe a Son, sort of a three premium sort of thing, and with heavier in defense with Cancelo, Trent, Robbo, etc., it's going to be difficult to spread that money then on the bench for that 36 bench boost. But then the argument to that against that is like you have a team like Palace, who we're looking at in 36. We see Mateta could be an option at 5.2. We hear Olise possibly has an injury, so leaves a spot possibly open there for Zaha as well. Chuck in one of the defenders, costs only 4.5. So it's not that much. And the potential
Yeah.
you're getting is significantly more, I think, because I think if you're bench boosting in 33, like in my team, for example, I'd be bench boosting Doherty, James, and probably one attacker. They're going to be single game week guys with good fixtures, but they're still single game week players. So there's a discussion to be had there.
I think for that, what you need to try doing is, just work with these fixed before you commit to a free bench boost decision, whether you want to bench boost in 33 or 36. Try building a bench boost squad for 36, because I think it's going to be way more difficult than you're thinking at the moment, especially because if City are in the title race, you will want to spend 20 million on 3 City assets. If
More,
Liverpool are in the
even
title
more,
race,
because I think you'd want
more.
KDB and Cancelo. Because an attacker, I'd really want KDB above all these guys. And we have to mention that he was rested over this international break as well. So you
Exactly.
could do worse in getting KDB even right now. Even on 32, it's big game Kev.
Yeah. And he's been doing really well as an FPL asset as well. I was just looking at some numbers for him. I think Tom or Neil wrote in an article that since game week 16 or 17, he's second in the midfielder standing. So he's been racking up those points as well. And there's no doubt in my head, we have 9 Premier League games left. I think Kevin De Bruyne plays 8 of them. I don't think Pep rotates around his squad too much. I think the guys who are guaranteed starters, like Kev, are going to be playing majority of the games. I was having a conversation with FPL Mihir, who's also an admin for a YouTube channel. Now he was worried about rotation and players not playing the Burnley game, etc. I think Pep is fully about rhythm. And after the Burnley game, they have 4 really important games, which include 2 cup ties against Liverpool and 2 cup ties against Atletico. Sorry, 1 league tie against Liverpool, 1 cup tie against Liverpool, and 2 cup ties against Atletico Madrid. Now, I don't see many things changing except maybe the front three and that Gundogan or Bernardo Silva spot. I think De Bruyne, Rodri are going to play majority of the games. I think Cancelo is going to be playing majority of the games because they have so many options in that front three. Maybe things change there, but I think the first team will primarily play majority of the games because there's 1 point in the league at the moment. So I don't think he can afford to rest too much. Are you worried about rotation at all from a City point of view? I'm not really worried.
It depends on the players you're going for. I'd be worried if I had a Mahrez. I'd be worried if I had a Foden. Not so much
Yeah,
with Kev, but I do want to avoid this whole carnage that's coming for them. The two Atletico games, the two Liverpool games, and see how the dust settles.
fair enough. Fair enough. Would you still, let's say, if you don't, in my position, don't own a Cancelo at the moment? In my head, that's my priority number one transfer. In my head, I want to get Cancelo at no cost because he's in that Trent league and Reece James league of defenders, right? Like, I don't think anybody comes close to that league. He's capable of dropping an 18 pointer literally any game. That's why I just want to make sure that I'm getting him first. I have zero City players, and he's the one I'm prioritizing because, again, for me, he falls in the De Bruyne category where I'm expecting him to play 8 out of the next 9 league
Even more
games. I
than De
don't think
Bruyne,
that's,
because De Bruyne you might see
yeah.
early subs. I think Cancelo in terms of minutes is the most secure. And that's a good question because I think in your team right now you have Robertson, Doherty, and you have James. I think you sold
Yeah,
James.
I have sold James. I have Trent Robbo, I have Rudiger, I have Doherty and Ben White. So I don't know if I want to sell Doherty or White because I think they're bang for buck in terms of what they're
True.
offering in terms of value. And it might require a significant downgrade in my attack. But I have no qualms selling a Rudiger for a Cancelo, for example, even though Rudiger might have more games. Because again, it's a separate category. Like if Cancelo's a tier 1 defender, Rudiger's a tier 2 defender, and there's no doubt in my head that it's an upgrade if you're spending that money to upgrade. So that's what I'm thinking about.
It's
I
interesting. It
if
might be worth getting rid of Trent in your case, but then to buy him back is going to be significantly more expensive. Are you prepared to go without him for the run in?
no, no,
So you'll
no,
swap
not.
Robbo out, or will you run with three expensive guys?
I'll see. I mean, it's a very dynamic situation, right? You're analyzing form because Robbo also has been amazing. He's tied on
Exactly.
Trent with 11 assists right now. He's only Harry Kane has scored more points than him this calendar year. He's averaging 9.1 FPL points per game. And the next best defender is actually not Trent, it's Matip at 7.1. It's a conversation we need to have because people who are looking for value picks, especially if you're building that 34, I like that we're absolutely freestyling this conversation because I think it leads to a lot more interesting conversation. If you're struggling for money in Gameweek 34, wanting to focus on City, I think somebody like a Joel Matip is a very interesting pick up at that point because I expect Matip to be rotated if the games are not important. But the games are really, really important, and Klopp
Have
is
a
going
look
to.
at their run in also. After 35, it's Newcastle, Tottenham, Southampton, Wolves, and Villa would be the one fixture that's thrown in. These aren't easy games. Any of them in
Exactly.
particular.
Exactly. And that's why Matip is going to play, right? And Liverpool's defense has improved actually. They're not that leaky defense. And we've spoken about Allison previously as well. He's 4.9 million. This could be an important asset for somebody looking to save money later because carrying Trent, Cancelo, Robbo, and Reece James might be a difficult proposition. You might need to cut corners somewhere. So that's why somebody like Matip could come into the conversation later. So that's actually something that I'm thinking about now while talking to you because carrying Trent and Robbo might be difficult. I might just downgrade one of them to a Matip so that I have uh, value in that Liverpool defense. And I do think Matip he's got a substantial threat on set pieces as well. And nowadays he's channeling his inner Rudiger. He's carrying the ball up the field and has clocked a couple of assists because of that as well. So yeah, that's interesting. But I think Chelsea is going to be the main point if you're wildcarding in 34 because what happens is if you're wildcarding in 34, depending on the Champions League result that Chelsea have against Madrid, Chelsea could immediately have a double game week in 34. And if Chelsea have a double game week in 34, it's probably because they don't have a UCL tie later. And then Chelsea become a very attractive proposition because they only have the FA Cup left as a competition that
And
they're
we
fighting
might
for.
mount a sneaky title challenge as well. You never know.
Wow, look at that optimism. From how many points are you all behind?
Not significantly. I think we need I think 6%. Depends on how the fixture when the two play each other. If they draw each other, that's the best result for us.
Yeah, and not just that, right? I don't think third place is sewn up
Yeah,
either.
because Arsenal, we
Arsenal,
have still yet to play Arsenal as well. So I think Arsenal only 4 points or something behind. So I don't think we'll be letting up. And there's also all the stuff going on in the background, right? You can't really take your foot off the gas. It's important to keep momentum up, important to keep spirits up, important to entertain the crowd. There's a lot of things going on in the background in Chelsea, which we could do a whole separate pod over.
Correct. So yeah. Cool. So I think you're gaining on Chelsea, you're gaining on Villa, you're gaining on Palace, and you're gaining on City. City maybe not so much because I think you're buying City assets whether you wildcard in 31 or 34. You're just ignoring that little complex period in game week 32 where these two teams play against each other. But I have no comms fielding these players when they're playing against each other
And you're
at the
getting
moment.
information. I would say that is the
Correct.
most important thing which you are gaining, and you get bypassing, because three English teams are right now in the UCL, two English teams are in the Europa Conference, or as Van Gaal called it yesterday, I loved it, the Frick Frack League. Did you see that?
Yeah. No, I did not see that. I did not see that.
It
I
was
did not see
brilliant. Yeah, he was on the warpath yesterday. He called Manchester United a commercial team, not a football team.
Yeah, I know that. He's been on a warpath with United ever since he's left our club. So yeah, exciting times though with the names that we are linked with in the club. But that's for
Yeah.
conversation
So
for
I
another
don't think
day.
all these five teams will be standing in Europe after this round completes, and that changes our thought making a lot. Because again, West Ham right now they look like they're completely dead on their feet. They are going to have to
Yeah,
prioritize Europe. Leicester also very much so. We've seen it with their team selection. So that is, I think,
yeah,
really the gain you are making more so than the players you're going losing out
yeah.
or gaining.
And the ties aren't easy either. Leicester play PSV, West Ham play Lyon. Both of them are pretty well known,
Season
good
teams.
teams in Europe. Season teams in
And
Europe.
those
So
guys take this competition seriously, right? In England, it's sort of frowned upon, but for PSV, it's a big deal.
correct, correct. I, I was listening to Process Stream last week, Burning Questions, which was great, and I thought, yeah, I could be tempted to wildcard in 31 because it's also a psychology thing, right? Where I'm like, why not now, if not later? And the way the fixtures have fallen, I think, except for the Burnley fixture, I think you are losing out on the Burnley fixture against City. I think that's a prime fixture for Man City assets at the moment. Uh, you're not really gaining that much wildcarding right now because your team is going to be heavy on Spurs and Arsenal and Liverpool anyway, whichever way you come out of 30 because of how the fixtures fell in 28, 29 because these teams are the doubles. Yeah, I do agree. And you don't want to sit on the sense. I do like the idea of wildcarding 34 and I like it even more if, like you're considering bench boosting in 33. I would be very tempted to get rid of the bench boost in 33. It would be much more effective to build a wildcard team, I reckon. I think you do that exercise right now the next 4 or 5 days off, where you see experiment building a game week 36 bench boost team because I think it's going to be way more difficult than you'd assume.
Yep.
That's
I'm just going to play it normally because I think this week is very simple. I do a Jimenez to Weghorst swap. 32, I plan to save.
yeah.
And then I see how the landscape in 33, because could be a lot of injuries. I don't know what the deal is with Ramsdale. Trent's injury could be normal, but I'm not going to take a -8, -12 to force the bench boost. That's not
Correct.
something I think I'm going to do.
Let's talk Trent because a lot of people are wondering what to do with him. If pretty much assured to not be playing in 31. If it looks like he's a maybe for 32, then you hold or sell if you're not wildcarding, if you don't have a wildcard chip. In my situation,
I think selling him for Robbo is not. I think you could get away. I don't think there'll be much between them towards the end of the season. Maybe plus or minus 10. So I think if you move him for someone, it would have to be for somebody like a Robertson or a Cancelo who can match him.
then you think it's okay. In my situation, if I can afford to just upgrade Rudiger instead, would you do it?
Yes, I would rather upgrade because Rudiger, like we said, no upside.
No upside. It's not the same category. Cool. Let's talk about the free hit then, because a lot of managers have free hit spending. What do you think is the right time to use the free hit chip?
Again, this is an
You
interesting
wrote an
question.
article about free hit in 33. Are you still in that same mindset where you don't see much upside free hitting in 33?
It's only because of how we've come out of the previous things, right? Most of us, like we discussed in the previous part with Bakar, we already have most of us 3 Arsenal. We already have seen. Now, it's different now if you free hit, right? Obviously, in game week 30, where you probably might not have had that many players from those teams, you played it in that aspect. Now, the whole thing about 33 I've tried to analyze is what is the opportunity cost? What is the next best time to play it? Because that's how you benchmark it, right? So,
Yeah.
like we talked about, we could see teams have different doubles. Like City, we've spoken about. If West Ham progress far in the Europa League, their double will rather go to 37 rather than 36. If you're carrying a lot of Spurs players, you can use that in 36. So, especially now, if you don't have a wild card, I think really the free hit in 36 makes sense because it's going to be very difficult for you to load up on a lot of City players. and structure your squad in such a way to get the team you want for 36. You'll almost going to have to tunnel vision yourself. Every transfer you make now would have to be with 36 in mind. So if you've already played your wild card, I'm going to say it's a borderline no-brainer to free hit in 36.
What's going to happen though, I'll tell you what the interesting thing is that the teams that are doubling in 36 are Spurs, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Chelsea, the teams you want to target. So you don't really mind tunnel visioning yourself towards building the 36 squad because they are the good teams and they are the teams you want to focus on anyway. That said, I still think because you're going to build towards that 36 squad, whether you free hit in 36 or not. So the thing is, in my head, the dilemma in my head is if I'm free hitting in 36, what is going to happen, irrespective of whether I made that decision or not, I'm going to have 7 or 8 players from these good teams either way. Regardless, do I still think it's worth free hitting in 36? So yes, because what might happen? Arsenal are 6 points ahead of Spurs, and Spurs don't have Europe in sight anymore. Or City have taken the league, and Liverpool are still in the UCL semis, and they're not going to be focusing on the league. You can cherry pick which out of these big teams you're going to focus on also, which is the information you don't have right now. So I think even having 3 or 4 of these big players as the right players in 36 is worth it compared to the upside in 33. People are talking about there being more upside in 33 because you don't own these players from teams like United, Leicester, Newcastle, etc. I still think even 3 or 4 players who are the right ones from these big teams in 36 is worth enough upside because these are the players who are capable of 15, 20, 25 point hauls. So I think it's so important to have the right pieces in 36. So where I am in terms of free hitting is I don't think I'm comfortable free hitting in 33. I'm happy going in with a huge chunk of. I have 3 Arsenal at the moment, one Leicester player, that's Harvey Barnes, and I might have 1 or 2 doublers more. But I'm very happy going in with Liverpool against United. I'm very happy going in with Spurs and City against Brighton, and see how it goes. Just because from an EO standpoint and from a gamification standpoint also, I'm probably going to be defending 36 against players like you who are going to be bench boosting, likely bench boosting, right? And if you don't have the right players in game week 36, the fall that could happen in 36 could be huge. So I think it's that important from a game standpoint to have that chip for 36, no matter whether you're building a team towards that or not, and then see how it happens. And also, my approach towards the free hit game week 34 onwards is very fluid. If Chelsea and Villa have a good looking double in 34, let's say if Chelsea go out of the cup competition and I own 0 Chelsea or Villa players, might be worth it loading up because I like FPL assets from both these two teams. And we've seen they've delivered in Game Week 28 as well, so they have good FPL assets. So after 34 onwards, I'm just going to look at it from a week to week standpoint and build towards these 5 big teams from 36 anyway. That's essentially how I'm planning to focus and play the rest of the season, where I'm just going to focus on the good teams and try not getting tunneled into buying or wasting transfers, buying a Vegosh or something, for example. Now, that's a separate conversation. You might do it anyway because there's not a big enough pool of strikers. I think that's also an important factor, by the way, in terms of the bench boost in 36, is you are struggling to find good strikers at the moment. So what happens
that's a good point you make because we have now Gerhardt. I was seeing a lot of guys post on Twitter. I don't think Gerhardt would play, but let's say now you use up your bench boost, let's say in 33, and you wildcard later. You could get the guys of stocking fillers like Gerhardt, Mateta, etc. as your bench players, rather than have to load up on others. So that is a good point as well.
Yeah. So I think the slight advantage is that you can get through a Chris Wood in there, and you can get a Southampton striker in there, and you're set with your strikers at least for the bench boost in 33. If you're dead ending in 33 and then wildcarding in 34, at least there are slightly more reliable options when it comes to strikers. I think Jamie Vardy is likely going to be fit in Game Week 31 as well. So Vardy could be an interesting punt in 33 as well, based on how many games he plays in Europe, etc. as well. So more striker options in 33 is something that.
Yeah. So to summarize, I think the only upside you can see is 33. You get players you wouldn't want long term. You can prepare. Yeah. So I think that I'm slightly moving away from what I said. I think you can be open to a 33 free hit to that extent, like what you just mentioned, that you can get the guys you don't want long term. 36 you can sort of prepare with transfer by getting players you'd want, but like you said, the information is a big trade-off as well.
Correct. And what you're fighting against. Because I've realized in the last year or two, we try to play this game in a purist way, but you're not competing against yourself for trying to build points. You're competing against the pack,
I've been
and
telling
the
you this
pack
for
is
8 years.
change manager this year. Last year
Template
was
FC,
a
template FC.
proper wake up call. Proper wake up call. So yeah, learning
Uh,
to change my ways a little slowly.
Mr. Dull. Right. Just before we move on now, game week 32. Let's just quickly touch upon this. The captaincy. What are you
Game
thinking
week
about?
32 and 33. I think it's an interesting conversation in 32 and 33. Let's look at the
I mean,
32 fixtures.
32 because 33, I'm not looking at it as much because you have double options and you have Salah also who has like United at home, easy fixture. But like because you have the two teams not available at the top of the table in 32. Those my earliest shout would probably be Kane, home to Villa. But there are a lot of other interesting options. I think Arsenal, they have Brighton at home. Saka is a decent option again. So early thoughts on that would be appreciated.
Yeah, Arsenal and Spurs, because again, these two teams are not playing in Europe. So that's where I would go for captaincy. And if you're bringing in a Ronaldo or a Bruno early, they play Everton away. I don't mind that as a captaincy shout either.
Like that way,
I think
you could possibly bring in Ronaldo in a week earlier. Okay.
yeah, yeah, you could just do that because I don't mind that Everton away game as well.
I don't know about that because it's a tricky one. I think this is the sort of week we talk about. There are certain weeks where you attack and certain weeks you defend. That's an attack week. I think you can go for anyone. You could even go for a Weghorst again. Dare I say it with the
You
Norwich fixture?
Rafinha versus Watford is an option if
Rafinha
you
versus
want
Watford
to.
is absolutely an option. So I think there are interesting picks that week outside the top guys. Because what I noticed about Villa, there's a stat I think I read somewhere that they do quite poorly against the teams that are placed above them on the table. They do well against the teams that are around them. But
Correct.
against Arsenal, that was such a dull game in terms of they offered absolutely nothing, but they were content to keep the defensive shape. They still didn't commit players forward. So I don't know how high scoring that game will be.
If you're watching Gerard's interviews after these big games, it always seems like his biggest problem is his team doesn't believe they're good enough to compete against this team. He's like, I don't know why they go into a little bit of a shell and not aggressive enough as they are in the other games. That's his biggest problem. And he's trying to instill that attitude into the team at the moment. So yeah, I think that's the thing. I think you go with Arsenal, United, or Spurs as a captaincy option in that week. And Rafinha is the outside shot out based on what Watford's defensive
Yeah.
form is looking like.
I like these relegation
Yeah.
6-pointers for captaincy at this
Yeah.
end of the season because you really never know. Because once one team scores, the other team is not going to sit back and defend. They're usually going to commit men forward to recover
Exactly.
the deficit.
Yep. Also worth mentioning, Rafinha is back training with Leeds. He wasn't traveling with the Brazil squad because of what happened in Game Week 30 where he got COVID. So just wanted to mention he looks likely to play Game Week 31 and 32. And he blanks in that. I think after 33, we're done with Leeds assets for the season. The fixtures are tough as well.
Yeah, they go like Man City, Arsenal, Brighton, Brentford, and Chelsea. Yeah, pretty tough run in. We hope they secure survival. I think the next 4 games, absolutely massive
Yeah,
for
I
them
hope
in
so.
terms of survival.
I hope so. I think Marsh has done a good job. I like what I've seen from, and also there was a little bit of a narrative building where I just want to address that because of what happened in Game Week 30, where people are saying that Wolves completely dominated the game until Jimenez got that second yellow. I don't think that was the case. Was it a second yellow? Was it a red?
Second
I,
yellow.
I don't remember.
Second yellow.
Second yellow. I thought Leeds created enough chances in the first half, and I think they were very much in the game. Obviously, things became easier once Jimenez got the red, but I don't think they were out of the game. I think there's
And
still a little bit of
Calvin
fall.
Phillips is back.
Calvin Phillips is back as well, which is an important. And I think Llorente is back. I think Koch is back fit as well. So I think things are looking upwards for them. One team, while we're talking about just players generally and how our perception needs to change, is Newcastle United. Because how we view them as a fixture, because a lot of people right now this week, I mean, I don't think you should captain an Everton or a Burnley player. I just don't think this is the week to do, especially if you own Burnley assets. One of the games is against City. So it's essentially 2 plus the Everton game. And I just much prefer Liverpool assets or Spurs assets. But because of Harry Kane's form, a lot of people are looking at Harry Kane over Mo Salah as a captaincy option this week. And I'm a little wary of that because Newcastle are a good team. There was just a little bit of a stat that I had noted down where only 2 teams have a higher minutes per XGC ratio compared to Newcastle United uh, this calendar year, and that's Liverpool and Man City. So they've really improved their defensive performance and are perception of them needs to change a little bit. That's all I want to mention.
That being said, keep your eye on team news this Saturday because Salah and Mane have a big game tonight. And you know that they
Correct.
also have the Champions League games, the Man City games, and all that stuff. If any fixture I would want to rest Salah, it would be this one, the Watford
Yeah,
game.
but I don't see it happening because either of the two teams drop points in this game, and the way how, like, if Liverpool drop points and City win, I think Pep can afford to go a little more defense first in
Yeah.
that second game. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's very important. It's very crucial for both these teams to get 3 points in 31, which is why I don't see any rest or rotation.
Just worth monitoring because I like that it's the earlier game, and Liverpool are the teams we do get sometime news in the press for, so worth monitoring that.
Exactly.
But let's
Exactly.
in fact jump into game week 31 and just have a quick discussion about the other fixtures as well. Let's just quickly touch
Yeah.
upon the double, guys. I think in Burnley we pretty much look. There's no midfield option there whatsoever to speak of. In defense, I like the look of Pope. I don't mind him as a replacement for Ramsdale over the next few games
Yeah.
because I think he has a much higher ceiling over those games.
It depends on whether you have a second keeper or not. So at the moment,
Like you
I
have
have
Dubravka,
Dubravka.
and who has some issues
Yeah.
again of his own.
Again, Neil just wrote an article yesterday that was sort of a false alarm, and Dubravka is back training with Newcastle as well.
Okay.
So as things stand, it looks more likely that he's going to be playing 31 than not. So it's an important bit of news for our listeners as well. Watch out for the press conferences later in the week as well. But I think it's a little bit of a false alarm. You don't need to worry too much. And if Ramsdale is out for just 1 or 2 weeks, I'd like to hold him towards the end of the season because, again, Arsenal, good team. When you're comparing Arsenal to Burnley for defensive performance, Ramsdale is in a different league, so I wouldn't.
Right.
And we saw that in the Villa game. Villa aren't an easy opposition, and Arsenal were able to control that game. That's not Arsenal of old, where they tend to generally concede 1 or 2 goals. They're much more sturdier, robust team than they were. So that's something worth pointing on.
Right.
I think. What do you think about Weghorst?
I think I like him primarily because even if I treat this game week as a single game week fixture, so it's like let's say it's 2 + 2 points he gets for Man City plus Everton. Everton away are abysmal.
Correct.
Not a bad fixture. Then you have Norwich. Then you have Southampton who have completely shit the bed all of a sudden, defensively especially. West
On the
Ham who
beach.
might have that fixture of Europe because I think they play on that Thursday before that. So there's some fatigue they're going to
332
carry.
33. Yeah.
They're going to carry
Yeah.
some fatigue into that as well. So I think that's why I like him, and purely because of lack of other options.
Lack of other options, yeah. Because from a numbers perspective, Weghorst is crap. Literally, I was looking
Absolutely.
at minutes per XG and all of that. Amongst the strikers, he's 15th or 16th since his debut. So he's not posting numbers worth writing home about at all. But again, it's about buying your cards. I have Ivan Tony. Tony is going to be useful to me only in game week 32. Would you take a hit to do Tony to Weghorst and just stick him in for 3 game weeks?
I would.
You would? Cool.
That's numbers, man. You're
Everton
getting like 5 fixtures over the next 3 games. They're the numbers.
and 11 fixtures until the end of the season. I think it's worth mentioning that. Everton, I think Gordon is still an asset that I like at 4.5 million. I think he's one of the
Pretty much
best
the
value
only
propositions.
asset I think that I like from there.
Yeah, I'm sitting with Richarlison, not so happy because he's teased and not giving me any points. But I'm probably just going to play him this week and then get rid of him.
I'd be interested to
But
see
that-
Calvert-Lewin if he becomes a factor because we really missed him.
Yep, exactly. It depends on his fitness. So again, we'll know only on Thursday or Friday how close he is to starting, and we'll have much more clarity there. But again, I made the mistake earlier where a person was dealing with fitness problems for a slightly longer duration. I jumped on DCL very early, around the 20 to 23 mark when they had double game week early, and he's barely featured since. So just a lesson to learn where somebody who's been dodging an injury issue for a long time, you don't really jump in early.
Yeah, we
It's okay
spoke
to
about
go
that
early.
last week also. You have to give these guys to get time to rehab, get 1 or 2 games back.
Exactly.
And that is West Ham. Again, West Ham also, again, this is prior to their Europe. They're not playing anything before this, so not a great fixture, really. They're not good games for Everton.
Just worth mentioning, ex West Ham United employee who's generally very reliable with West Ham news is saying that Bowen and Soufal both could be in contention playing 31. So Athletic reported that they were trying to fight and play the European ties, but he's more reliable in my opinion. He's got a little bit of an inside track on West Ham news, so we could see Bowen And they have good fixtures from 30 to 33, but they're a no-go because of prioritizing Europe, in my opinion.
I think Chelsea, Brentford, there's not really much to cover. If you have your Chelsea defenders, you play. What about Havertz? This is again, we're talking a little bit about tunnel vision. What about bringing in somebody like Havertz?
My instinct is I'd be much more confident bringing in a Kai Havertz after knowing the result of the Madrid game. Like I think, yeah, you're right though. There could be a chance, and you don't stop playing this game. But I think he's definitely first choice, which is why he's definitely going to be playing the Madrid games in my head. So he could be rested or rotated in one of the league games because of the fixture crunch.
I think
That's
he's
what
quite
my
young, though. And his
thinking.
fitness level is good. I see him playing pretty much every game now. It's Timo who's probably going to sub on and off and stuff a little bit.
It is still a very tight fixture crunch, right? Because it's 2 UCL ties, 2 league games, and 1 FA Cup tie within a period of 2.5 weeks. So
The,
that's
the
the
FA Cup
problem.
tie looks a little bit easier for us now because Gallagher can't play against us.
Correct.
Olise, we are hearing has a possible injury. I think, if
Yeah.
anything, that becomes a sort of the easier fixture of the lot.
Correct. Leeds, Southampton. I think if you own either of these players, I think you start them because both the oppositions are quite leaky at the moment. So I'd be happy with attackers from either teams at the moment.
Yep, a lot of us have Broya still. I have him on my bench currently. I don't know. I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind playing him as a first sub. You never know because I think there might be a bit of carnage as well. This week with all
Yeah.
these COVID cases, there's a big COVID spike, and it's worth mentioning. I think if you guys managed to field 4 players in your bench boost, you got pretty lucky because it's again
Yeah.
pretty much lottery now, which players are going to turn up on any day.
Yeah. And as we've seen a lot of these weird cases and numbers come up in the last couple of weeks. So
There's a proper
yeah,
spike worldwide.
exactly. Wolves Villa, not expecting much from this game. I'm expecting it to be a fairly drab affair, which generally is the case with Wolves teams and Wolves games. So
Big
let that
derby,
gonna be on the
big derby game also.
okay. United Leicester. Do you
This is an
think
interesting one. Like you have Harvey Barnes. How confident are you have of somebody playing somebody like a Barnes versus a Broya is a decision to be made this week, for example.
I'd play Broya? Our except for the poor results that we've had against the big teams, our defensive numbers under Nick have improved, and that's the case. That worth monitoring though that Varane is a slight injury doubt this week, and I think if he's an injury doubt, then our
I heard
defense.
he's playing for France today. So obviously, we'll find out soon. I heard he's captaining France tonight, possibly.
So if he's playing, then he's fine because he came off early in the previous game in the 60th minute, is what I read. So just something worth monitoring. But question: if you were wildcarding in 31, would you plump on United? 3 good fixtures, and then maybe 1 or 2 attackers, and then go out of them 34 onwards.
If you're getting one of the big guys, either Bruno or Ronaldo, you're obviously going without somebody like a Kane or KDB. Or I don't think the opportunity cost is worth it.
I think I wouldn't lose out on Harry Kane in this form. He's just in a different league of a player. But I'd be tempted to go for a Bruno or a Jadon Sancho for maybe one of the City guys just for 2 or 3 weeks because they have a double in 33 and they have a decent looking fixture where City play Liverpool in 32. So just for this 3 week period, I would be tempted and then move into a City midfielder or something a little later. That's the only thing that would tempt me. That's all.
That's fair enough. I think West Ham,
Yeah.
Everton, we discussed. Spurs, Newcastle, I don't mind as a captaincy shot. I know you mentioned some stuff about Kane, but I don't mind it if you want to go something different.
But if Salah's looking like he's playing Watford,
Yeah, just go with Salah. So, but I do think
it's a
Salah,
no.
it's a no-brainer almost, but I do think, like, Liverpool are 2-0, 3-0, Salah does get subbed a bit early. So if
Yeah.
you're wanting to roll the dice, I think Kane is the one I would probably look at this week.
Yeah. Fair enough. I do agree with you. I can see managed minutes for Salah. It's okay if my face can't be seen. It's fine for the last 5-10 minutes. It's fine.
But what would the ladies say? There we go.
There you go. Cool. Palace Arsenal. Difficult game to call, in my opinion.
The
I'm
Vieira
currently
derby.
benching.
I think so. Arsenal have been good, but I don't think it's a fixture you feel confident playing your Palace. I think Arsenal attackers, you could still play your Saka, etc. I have both Saka and
Yeah, but
Martinelli. I'm planning to play here.
I'm currently benching Ben White in
I
this
do that.
fixture.
Do that as well.
Yeah. And Burnley Everton is a little bit of a 6-pointer. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting game that we're going to witness on Wednesday night,
Wednesday
is it?
night.
Yep. Yeah. Again, one that could go literally either way. I'm hoping we
I think
get to see
Burnley.
some carnage.
I think Burnley will take it. They're a
Yeah.
better team.
I think if DCL is fit, I think that will be a huge boost for Everton. So I think a lot depends on that.
Let's just move to our teams.
Sure.
Like, this is my team first up. I've got Ramsdale in goal, Cancelo. I think I'll probably be playing James, Doherty, and Martinelli, Kulusevski, Salah, Rafinha, Saka, and currently Jimenez and Kane with Broya on the bench. Jimenez will be making way for Weghorst. I'll probably be putting De Gea in for Ramsdale. And you can see why this team will work for a 33 bench boost, right?
I agree. And I see why you're not wildcarding right now. That's just on paper, that's a good squad. You've got all the right pieces. Also, Zoph, James should be fit.
Right, so James, I'll probably put him in for Dean. I literally just logged into FPL today morning after 10 days to take
Yeah.
this screenshot. So I haven't even juggled things around.
Correct. Cool. It's a really strong team. I can see why you don't have to wildcard right now. It's just a strong team.
Makes sense to save it for later.
Yeah.
Your team next.
Yeah. So in as my keeper, I have Ramsdale. I've got Dubravka as my backup option. If both of them look injured, I might be tempted by Nick Pope. So that's where I'm at the moment. In defense, I've got Trent, Robbo, Doherty, and Rudiger. In midfield, I have Mo, who's my captain at the moment, Saka, Kulusevski, and Gordon. And up front, I have Kane and Richarlison. If at all Trent doesn't play, I'm probably going to get in Cancelo. So it's going to be for either Rudiger or Trent. He's my number one transfer target this week. So it just depends on Trent news that we get later. That's where I'm at the moment. Not really complicating it too much. I want to get Cancelo in. And I just have the inkling that, some people might snooze on him. And I think he might just drop that 18-pointer this week. Because these are the kind of games where Cancelo likes to do well, where City hog possession and Burnley are going to sit back. And Cancelo likes playing that kind of opposition where they just sit. And that's why I just like him as an option this.
Well, let's do a quick Q&A before we have to depart for work.
Cool. Not bad. Went really well. Okay, questions. 2 free transfers, Rudiger and Rafinha to James and Leicester mid. Orta.
I don't like losing, on the face of it, I don't like using Rafinha right now for a Leicester mid because it's a minefield for the next 2 weeks at least.
Agreed. And Raf has a very good 2 game weeks. I like him as a differential for the next 2 weeks. Oh, Son to KDB. Something we discussed. What do you think?
Short term, I like Son's fixtures more. Especially because
and he's
33 also. Yeah. And the things with Son, right? He's such a home banker.
Exactly. It's a little bit of a beast at home. So I don't know if I'd do it this week. That said, I mentioned this, I tweeted this right at the end of Gameweek 30. I think if you are chasing, let's say outside the 60, 70K, I think KDB is a differential I'd throw in from Gameweek 31 to 38. I think he's the one that's got that upside. So it depends on a little bit of game state play also.
Correct.
Is Cancelo a viable captaincy option this week? He is. My opinion has changed there, and these are exactly the kind of matchups where I like him. Still think he's behind Salah and Kane in the pecking order, though.
And I don't like it as much this.
Neither of us are recommending even considering captaining Burnley or Everton assets.
Nope, definitely not.
Yeah, very clear, very, very, very clear about that. Would you downgrade Wood to Gerrard and Size to Cancelo for a -4? He's free hitting in 33. Absolutely.
Yes.
No comms with.
With the free hit in 33, I do like that in mind. See, that's another thing we should have mentioned earlier. There are a lot of things you can do now. If you can just decide at 33, I'm going to free hit. Moves like that.
Yeah. I just think you commit to decisions right now. And when it comes to the 33 decision, you either commit to whether you're free hitting in 33 or not. I don't think you need to decide whether free hitting in 34, 35, 36, 37. Even 38 is a great week to free
Spot
hit.
on 33, you have to decide pretty much. That decides your game week 31 transfer.
Exactly. If I have one free hit for 36, then who do you prefer to buy from United for 33? Ronaldo, Bruno, Sancho. 3 options. There's nobody else you should consider as FPL options, right?
I guess it depends which one. I think between Ronaldo and Bruno or Sancho, it all depends on who you're losing, who's easier to get to.
Exactly. Jimenez out for Weghorst or Marteta? I think at the moment you just buy Weghorst. Play what's in front. Cool. I think we'll wrap up the stream right now, because need to rush to work as well. And we might have another video before the uh, deadline on Saturday. We'll know more about that. We might look to get a guest in who's on a wildcard. So we'll let you know about that a little later. And until then, good luck this week. Happy birthday to Bakar again. Do wish him on Twitter tomorrow. I think it'll make him a very happy man. And see you next week.
See you
Any last
next week,
words, Zoph?
guys. Like and subscribe always, as usual. See you soon. Have a good game week.